AITA for exposing my cousin's wife after she demanded rent for my own house. I'm Lewis, 41, and for most of my adult life, I was the man in my family everyone expected to stay calm when things got messy. I lived a quiet, careful life, owned a modest house I had worked hard to maintain, and hated turning family problems into public spectacles. I kept spare batteries in the kitchen drawer, saved receipts longer than necessary, and usually fixed the loose cabinet handle instead of arguing about who broke it. Derek is my younger cousin, but growing up, he felt more like a little brother. He was the kid who slept on my floor during family holidays, borrowed my hoodies without asking, and called me first when his car made a weird noise. When we got older, that closeness changed shape, but it never disappeared. So when Derek called me 3 years ago sounding embarrassed and tired, I answered the way I always had. It was late, close to midnight. I was rinsing a mug in the sink when my phone buzzed. Derek's name popped up, and before I even said hello, I could hear the strain in his breathing. "Lewis," he said, "I know this is a lot to ask." I dried my hands on a dish towel and leaned against the counter. "What happened?" He told me he and his wife, Marissa, had hit a rough patch. Money was tight. Their lease was ending. A few bills had stacked up. He said they didn't need charity, just breathing room. "A few months," he said. "Maybe a little longer, but not forever. I swear. We just need to reset." I looked around my house while he talked. It wasn't fancy. It was just mine. 3 bedrooms, old floors that creaked in the hallway, a kitchen window that caught the morning light in a way I liked. I had bought it years earlier and kept it in my name, paid the taxes, handled the repairs, and made it feel steady. I had space. Derek was family, and I still remembered him as that nervous kid who used to ask me if I thought he was doing okay. So I told him, "You can stay here while you get back on your feet. But it needs to be clear. This is breathing room, not a permanent plan." He exhaled like he had been holding his breath for a week. "Of course, whatever you need." I put it in writing, not because I expected war, but because I had seen too many family favors rot into resentment when nobody wrote down what was actually agreed to. It was simple. Derek and Marissa could stay temporarily. They would respect the house, contribute to basic utilities when they could, save money, and understand that staying there didn't give them ownership or control. No legal jargon. No humiliation. Just boundaries. Derek replied to the email within minutes. "Thank you. Seriously. We won't forget this." Marissa replied the next morning. Her message was polite and warm. "We know this is your house, and we appreciate you giving us breathing room. We are not going to make this weird." That line stuck with me later for obvious reasons. At first, they were easy to live with. Marissa brought over a grocery store pie the first night and set it on the counter like she was arriving at a dinner party instead of moving in. Derek carried boxes in until his shirt stuck to his back. I cleared out one bedroom and part of the closet, made space in the pantry, and told them not to feel like they had to tiptoe. For a while, I thought we were doing fine. Derek would grab takeout sometimes and leave my order in the fridge with a sticky note. Marissa would wipe the counters after breakfast and send texts like, "Do you need anything from the store?" On Sundays, we would end up half watching football while folding laundry or arguing about whether the old thermostat was lying to us. I didn't brag about helping them. I didn't bring it up at family dinners or remind Derek every month that he was only there because of me. Aunt Carol, Derek's mother, knew the broad version. Uncle Ray knew enough to say, "Good of you, Lewis," once while handing me a paper plate at a cookout. But I didn't want Derek and Marissa to feel like the whole family was tracking their struggles. That was probably my first mistake. I mistook discretion for protection. Later, Marissa would use that silence like an open laying. The first boundary issue was small enough that I almost talked myself out of being annoyed. I came home one evening and found the hallway closet empty. My storage bins, the ones with tax records, old photos, extra cables, and a box of Christmas lights, had been moved to the garage. Not stacked badly, not thrown around, just moved. Marissa was in the kitchen stirring pasta sauce, wearing one of those calm expressions people use when they already know you're going to object. "I organized the hallway closet," she said. "It was kind of wasted space." I opened the garage door and saw my bin sitting near the lawn tools. "I was using that space," I said. "That's why my things were there." She gave me a little smile. I figured nobody really needed it right there. It makes more sense for coats and cleaning stuff. "Ask me next time." "Sure," she said, but the word landed flat. Derek found me later tightening a loose screw on the cabinet under the sink. He leaned in the doorway and lowered his voice. Can you just let her have this one? She's been stressed. She needs to feel settled. I looked up at him. Let her have what exactly? The closet. He rubbed the back of his neck. You know what I mean. I didn't, but I let it go. Then, the language started changing. Marissa began calling the house our home in family conversations. That by itself didn't bother me. People say that about where they live. But there was a tone under it, a little extra weight, like she was planting a flag each time. In the family group chat, she posted a photo of the living room after moving some furniture around. Finally making our home feel peaceful, she wrote. Aunt Carol replied with heart emojis. Uncle Ray wrote, looks like a real family place now. Derek said nothing. I stared at the picture for a while because I recognized what was missing. 2 framed photos that had hung in the hallway for years were gone. One was of my father and me standing beside a grill with smoke in our faces. The other was a picture of my siblings and me from a holiday dinner where nobody was looking at the same camera. I found both frames later in a cabinet under a stack of table runners. Marissa was sitting at the dining table with her laptop open when I walked in holding the frames. Why were these taken down? She glanced at them and sighed softly, like I had brought up dirty dishes during a medical emergency. They didn't really match the direction we're going. The hallway looked too much like a bachelor pad. I waited because I thought maybe she would hear herself. She didn't. The direction of whose house? I asked. Her mouth tightened. I'm not trying to erase you, Louis. I'm trying to make it feel like a home. It was a home before you moved in. She closed her laptop a little harder than necessary. You don't have to make everything territorial. That was the thing about Marissa. She rarely sounded openly cruel. She made unreasonable things sound like emotional health. Peace. Stability. Safety. A real home. If you disagreed, suddenly you were the one being petty. I brought it up with Derek again. We stood in the driveway beside the trash bins, the kind of place where men in my family have most of their uncomfortable conversations because eye contact feels optional. You need to talk to her, I said. Moving my things, taking down my pictures, acting like she gets the final say. This was supposed to be temporary. Derek nodded too quickly. I get it. I do. Then why do I feel like you don't? He looked toward the house. Through the kitchen window, Marissa was rinsing a glass. She's just trying to build something, he said. You know how she is. Once she feels secure, she'll relax. Derek, security doesn't mean pretending the house belongs to her. He gave me that tired, helpless look I had seen him use since we were kids when he wanted someone else to absorb the consequences for him. Can you just not turn this into a thing right now? So again, I let it go more than I should have. A few months later, Marissa started referring to the spare room as the future nursery, even though she wasn't pregnant yet. I came home one Saturday and found paint swatches taped to the wall. Soft yellow, pale green, a color called Cloud Bunny, which annoyed me more than it should have. My boxes were still in that room. Old documents, seasonal clothes, a small desk I used when I needed quiet. Marissa stood in the doorway with her phone in her hand, scrolling through a Pinterest board. This would be perfect someday, she said. Someday for what? She smiled without looking at me. You know, eventually. Eventually doesn't mean you can erase the agreement. That made her look up. Nobody is erasing anything. You always jump to paperwork. I almost laughed. The paperwork is the only reason this arrangement stayed clean. She shook her head. Paperwork isn't everything. That phrase came back later, too. Then she got pregnant. The first announcement came in the family group chat. It was an ultrasound photo placed beside a pair of tiny socks on their bedspread. Marissa wrote, "Baby coming soon. We are over the moon and praying for peace, health, and a safe home." The chat exploded. Aunt Carol sent a string of crying emojis. Uncle Ray wrote, "Now this is news." Cousins I barely heard from came out of nowhere with congratulations. I smiled when I saw it. Whatever tension existed between Marissa and me, a baby was still happy news. I wrote, "Congratulations. I'm happy for you both." Marissa responded to everyone else with hearts and little comments. She didn't respond to me. At the next family dinner, she announced it again in person. Aunt Carol had made too much food. The table was crowded, and everyone kept asking Marissa how she felt. She sat with one hand resting lightly on her stomach, even though she wasn't showing yet. Derek sat beside her smiling, but there was something stiff about it. Marissa raised her glass of sparkling water and said, "This baby is going to grow up in a house full of love and stability. That's all I want. A peaceful home." Everyone nodded like she had said something profound. I noticed she didn't say Lewis's house. She didn't say where we're staying. She said it like the future had already been decided for all of us. A week later, she asked me to join a calendar invite called House Conversation. When I opened it, she had renamed the event Family Planning Meeting. That told me more than I wanted to know. We had the conversation in the kitchen. I was making coffee. She stood near the island with both hands around a mug she hadn't touched. The house was quiet except for the drip of the coffee maker and Derek moving around upstairs. "I don't want this to come out wrong," she began. Any sentence that starts like that already knows it's going to come out wrong. I waited. "With the baby coming, things have to change," she said. "The energy in the home matters. Stability matters. I can't feel like I'm bringing a child into someone else's space." I poured coffee into my mug slowly. "You are in someone else's space." That was the arrangement. Her face shifted, just a flicker. Irritation under the calm. "That's exactly what I mean," she said. "You keep making us feel like guests." "Marissa, you are guests." "Family, yes. But guests. Temporary guests who have been here a lot longer than originally planned." She set her mug down. "That doesn't sound very supportive." "Support doesn't mean I hand over my house." She took a breath like she was trying very hard to remain patient with a difficult child. "I'm not asking you to hand over anything. I'm saying if you plan to stay after the baby comes, you need to contribute like everyone else. Derek and I can't be responsible for creating a stable household while another adult just floats through it." For a second, I thought I had misunderstood. "Contribute how?" She lifted her chin. "Rent. Paid to us. Or you need to make other plans before the baby arrives." I stared at her. I remember the coffee maker clicking off behind me. "You want me to pay rent to live in my own house? I want you to respect that Derek and I are building a family. Ownership isn't the same thing as having a real family in the home." I gave one short laugh, not because it was funny, but because my brain needed somewhere to put the shock. "I contribute by owning the house you're standing in. I pay the property tax. I pay most of the utilities. I paid for the water heater you used this morning." She looked away. "Paperwork doesn't rock a baby to sleep." "No," I said, "but paperwork does tell you who pays the property tax." Derek came downstairs right then and froze at the edge of the kitchen. He had clearly heard enough to know what was happening. "Can we not do this right now?" he asked. I looked at him. "Did you know she was going to ask me to pay rent?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, "She's stressed." That answer told me yes. After that, the campaign started. Marissa never wrote, "Lewis won't leave his own house," because that would have made people ask questions. Instead, she posted vague little moral grenades in the group chat. "Some people don't understand that a baby changes priorities." Aunt Carol replied, "Try not to stress, honey." Marissa wrote, "We need peace in our home before the baby comes." A cousin sent praying hands. Then, "Family should help, but not take advantage." I stared at that one for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Take advantage of what, exactly?" then deleted it. Nina, my sister, didn't delete hers. "What exactly are we being asked to judge here?" she wrote. Marissa responded almost immediately. "I'm not going to argue in a group chat while pregnant." That was clever. She had started the argument in the group chat, then declared herself above arguing once challenged. The private text came next. "Aunt Carol, Lewis, I just don't want this baby coming into tension. Please think about what really matters. Uncle Ray, sometimes a grown man has to step aside for a young family. Be the bigger person." Another relative wrote, "I don't know the details, but Marissa seems really hurt." That one almost made me throw my phone onto the couch. Nobody knew the details because nobody asked. Not one person started with, "Who owns the house?" or "What was the agreement?" They heard a pregnant woman say she needed peace and filled in the rest with me as the obstacle. At home, Marissa became bolder. She asked me to clear out the storage closet completely for nursery overflow. She said my mail on the kitchen counter made the house feel shared in a bad way. She told me Derek needed to feel like the head of his own household. I said, "Derek can feel like the head of his household when he has one." She blinked at me. That was unnecessary. "So was asking me to pay rent to you." She put one hand on her stomach, which was becoming her favorite punctuation mark. I am trying to protect the environment my child is coming into. From my electric bill? She left the room. The thing that finally shifted me from annoyed to suspicious wasn't what Marissa said in public. It was how she reacted when I corrected her privately. She never looked confused. She looked inconvenienced. Like the truth was a noise I kept making while she was trying to tell a better story. Nina called me after one especially ugly group chat exchange. "Tell me something," she said without saying hello. "Why is everyone acting like Derek owns that house?" "Because Marissa keeps saying our home, like a spell. And you keep letting her." I sat at my dining table, looking at the spot on the wall where my father's picture used to hang. I didn't want to embarrass anyone. Nina snorted. "They're already embarrassing you. They're using your silence like a signed confession." "I have the agreement," I said. "Then stop debating feelings with people who are ignoring facts." That night, I opened my laptop and started gathering records. I found the original email agreement in less than 10 minutes. Derek's reply was there. Marissa's reply was there, too. "We know this is your house, clear as daylight." I printed it. Then I pulled up the property tax bill with my name on it. Printed that, too. The utility accounts were mostly in my name, and the payment history was uglier than I remembered. Derek had promised to contribute what he could. For the first few months, he sent small transfers with notes like electric or water. Then the payments got spotty. Then they became rare. Meanwhile, I had covered repairs, internet upgrades Derek said he needed, and a higher power bill once Marissa started working from home more often. The numbers told a cleaner story than anyone in the group chat wanted to hear. I printed bank records showing what Derek had paid and what he hadn't. I printed screenshots of Marissa's vague group chat comments. I printed the old texts where I had reminded Derek the arrangement was temporary, and he had replied, "I know. I appreciate you." Then I searched older text threads with Derek, looking for one message about the water heater. I didn't find it right away. Instead, I found something worse. It was from months earlier, around the time Marissa first started pushing for more space. Derek had accidentally texted me something clearly meant for her, then followed it with, "Ignore that." At the time, I had ignored it because it seemed like marital tension and not my business. But now I read it again. Just don't push him too hard. He hates family drama, so he'll probably cave. I sat there with my hands off the keyboard. Marissa wasn't misunderstanding anything. Derek wasn't trapped between his wife and his cousin. He knew exactly what she was doing. He knew I owned the house. He knew the agreement was temporary. He knew the family pressure was being aimed at me because I had a reputation for staying calm and swallowing discomfort to keep things peaceful. That hurt more than Marissa's entitlement. Marissa had married into the family. Derek knew me. Derek knew why I had offered help without making a show of it. He knew I didn't want him to feel small, and he had turned that restraint into a weakness to exploit. I slept badly that night. Not dramatically. I didn't pace under moonlight or punch a wall. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while the air conditioner clicked on and off, replaying every time Derek had looked away while Marissa pushed. Every she's stressed. Every "can you just let her have this?" Every moment he had let me look unreasonable so he could keep benefiting from a lie he didn't have to say out loud. The next morning, I called an attorney. Not because I wanted to sue anyone into oblivion, but because I didn't trust myself to guess my way through a housing conflict with family living under my roof. The attorney listened, asked a few practical questions, and then said, "Don't make this personal. Make it documented. Don't lock them out. Don't shut off utilities. Don't throw property outside. Put everything in writing and follow the proper process if they refuse terms." That was exactly the kind of boring advice I needed. I prepared a folder. Actual paper, not just screenshots, because I knew my older relatives. A document on a phone could be waved away as technology. Paper on a table made people sit differently. The folder had the deed showing my name, the property tax bill, the original agreement, utility records, bank transfers, Marissa's old email acknowledging it was my house, her group chat comments, and Derek's message about me probably caving. I wasn't preparing to attack them. I was preparing to stop being attacked without evidence. The confrontation happened at Aunt Carol's backyard barbecue 2 Saturdays later. It was the kind of family gathering where everyone pretends the folding chairs are comfortable and the potato salad hasn't been sitting out too long. Aunt Carol had paper plates stacked at one end of the picnic table. Uncle Ray was standing near the grill giving advice nobody asked for. Someone had brought a store-bought sheet cake with blue frosting, even though it wasn't a birthday. I arrived with the folder in my truck, not under my arm. I was still hoping I wouldn't need it. That hope lasted about 40 minutes. Marissa was sitting in a folding chair like a queen holding court, one hand on her stomach, while relatives asked about names and cravings. Derek stood nearby with a drink in his hand, staring at the ice like it owed him money. Aunt Carol asked if they had started setting up the nursery. Marissa gave a soft little laugh. We're trying. It has been complicated. The air changed. I felt Nina look at me from across the yard. Uncle Ray said, complicated how? Marissa glanced at me, then looked down, as if she hated having to say what she had been waiting all afternoon to say. The baby needs stability, Louis, she said. Loud enough for everyone. You've had enough time. Derek and I can't keep living in limbo. By the end of the month, you either need to move out or start contributing rent so we can plan properly. The yard went quiet in layers. First, the people closest to her stopped talking. Then the grill conversation died. A plastic fork dropped onto a plate somewhere behind me. Everyone looked at me like I had been caught sleeping on their couch for free. Derek didn't say a word. He stared into his cup. I held my plate for a second longer than I should have. A hot dog, a spoonful of beans, some chips. It's strange what details stick in your head when someone tries to humiliate you in front of your family. I set the plate down on the picnic table. Stability is a strange word to use, I said, when you're trying to charge rent to the person on the deed. Aunt Carol blinked. What? Marissa's face flushed. Louis, this isn't the time. I looked at Derek. Funny. You both made it the time. Uncle Ray shook his head. Come on, Louis. Sometimes a grown man has to step aside for a young family. Do the decent thing. I nodded once. Before anyone gives me another lecture, you should know what house we're actually talking about. Then I walked to my truck, got the folder, and came back. By the time I returned, people were whispering. Marissa was speaking quietly to Aunt Carol. Derek had moved half a step away from his wife, which I noticed and hated him for. I placed the folder on the table and opened it. I've been quiet because I didn't want this to turn ugly, I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. But I'm not going to sit here while you tell my family I'm freeloading in a house I own. Marissa's eyes got wet immediately. Too quickly. You're seriously doing this to a pregnant woman in front of everyone? No, I said. You asked me to pay rent to stay in my own house. I'm correcting the part of the story you left out. Derek stepped forward. Louis, come on. This isn't the place. I turned to him. The family became the place when you let them judge me without the facts. That shut him up. I didn't read every document out loud like some courtroom drama. I slid the deed copy onto the table first. My name was right there. Then the property tax bill. Then the original written agreement. Aunt Carol leaned closer, one hand pressed to her mouth. Uncle Ray squinted at the pages, suddenly very interested in the grass near his shoes. I placed Marissa's old email on top. This is from Marissa, I said. From when they moved in. She wrote, we know this is your house, and we appreciate you giving us breathing room. Marissa's tears stopped looking useful. Her expression hardened. That was before we had a baby to think about. No, I said. That was before you thought the baby would make everyone afraid to question you. A few people shifted uncomfortably. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult the baby. I didn't have to. Then I placed the utility records and bank transfers down. Derek promised to contribute when he could. Sometimes he did. Most of the time he didn't. I covered the majority of the house costs while being accused of taking advantage. Derek finally looked at me. You didn't have to bring all that. You didn't have to let your wife call me a freeloader. Aunt Carol's voice shook. Derek, is this true? He looked at his mother, then at Marissa, then at me. It's more complicated than that. Nina spoke from the other side of the table. No, it really isn't. I almost stopped there. A part of me still wanted to protect Derek from the worst of it. That part was tired and old and had been trained by years of family peacekeeping. But then I remembered him staring into his drink while Marissa told me to move out of my own house. So I pulled out the last page. This is the part that hurt more than the rent demand, I said. Derek's face changed before anyone read it. He knew. I placed the screenshot on the table. Derek wrote, just don't push him too hard. He hates family drama, so he'll probably cave. Silence hit harder than shouting would have. Aunt Carol looked at Derek like she didn't recognize him for a second. Uncle Ray took off his glasses, wiped them on his shirt, then put them back on even though there was nothing wrong with them. Someone near the grill whispered, wow. Nina said, So this wasn't confusion. It was a strategy. Marissa stood up too fast. I'm not going to be attacked while pregnant. I said, nobody is attacking your pregnancy. I've never said one bad word about your baby. This is about two adults using a baby to pressure me out of property I own and pay for. She pointed at the papers. You care more about documents than family. I care about the truth, I said. Family doesn't mean letting someone lie about me, smear me in a group chat, and demand control of my house. Derek muttered. We were just trying to make a home. That one almost got under my skin. Then make one honestly, I said. Don't build it by pretending mine is yours. Aunt Carol started crying. Not loud dramatic crying, just quiet tears and a trembling napkin. She looked at me and said, I didn't know. I believed her. That didn't erase the texts, the pressure, or the way she had assumed I was the selfish one, but I believed she hadn't known the whole truth. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. I didn't have the whole picture. It wasn't exactly an apology. It was close enough for Uncle Ray, which meant it was awkward and incomplete. I closed the folder. Now you do. Marissa said, you humiliated us. I looked at Derek. No, I stopped helping you humiliate me. Then I left. I didn't stay to eat cake. I didn't stand around collecting apologies like prizes. I took my folder, walked back to my truck, and drove home with my hands tied on the steering wheel and my phone buzzing in the cup holder. Nina called first. I answered on speaker. You okay? She asked. Not really. You did the right thing. I watched the road ahead and let out a breath. I hate that it had to be like that. It had to be like that because they made quiet truth impossible. That was the cleanest way anyone put it. That night, I sent Derek and Marissa an email. Not a text. Not a call. An email with attachments. Going forward, all conversations about the house will happen in writing. I will not discuss ownership, rent, bills, or move-out expectations through family pressure or group chat comments. You may review the attached rental agreement and respond by the deadline. Or you may begin preparing to leave through the proper legal process. I will not lock anyone out, shut anything off, or act outside the law. I also will not continue paying for extras while being publicly accused of taking advantage. The rental agreement was reasonable. Clear payment responsibilities. Clear boundaries. A move-out timeline. Written expectations. Nothing cruel. Nothing sudden. Just accountability. Derek called me 8 times after I sent it. I didn't answer. He texted, can we talk like family? I replied, family is why I helped. Writing is why I won't be lied about again. Marissa sent one message that said, I hope you're proud of yourself for putting stress on a pregnant woman. I didn't respond. There was no useful answer to someone determined to treat accountability like an attack. The family group chat went quiet for 2 days. Then Aunt Carol wrote, I think everyone needs to stop discussing this publicly. Nina replied, interesting timing. I told Nina not to start anything. She sent back, fine, but I'm biting my tongue so hard I deserve dental coverage. Derek and Marissa tried to rally sympathy again, but the magic was gone. Once people knew I owned the house, the story didn't have the same effect. One cousin offered to let them stay for a while if things were really that bad. That offer disappeared after Derek mentioned they needed a stable place without rent pressure, and Marissa asked whether the spare room could be reserved for the baby only. Word got around, not because I kept pushing it, but because families talk. The same relatives who had texted me about being decent suddenly had very little to say when decency involved opening their own doors. Aunt Carol called me about a week later. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answered. Louis, she said softly, I'm sorry I pressured you. I was thinking about the baby. I know. That isn't an excuse. I should have asked more questions. I appreciated that because it sounded like it cost her something to say it. The baby was never the problem, I told her. I would have helped with the baby. I was already helping. The problem was being told that help meant I had no boundaries. She cried again quietly. I understand. Uncle Ray left me a voicemail that said, I spoke out of turn. I apologize for that. Then he added, still hope everyone can keep peace, because Uncle Ray couldn't help himself. I deleted the voicemail after listening once. At home, Derek and Marissa were stiff and quiet. Marissa stopped leaving nursery catalogs on the dining table. Derek stopped making jokes in the kitchen. They both avoided me unless something had to be discussed. When something did have to be discussed, I made it written. The internet bill? Email. Utility split? Email. Move out timeline? Email. Marissa tried once to corner me while I was unloading groceries. This written-only thing is cold, she said. I set a bag on the counter. So was asking me to pay rent to you in front of my family. She crossed her arms. I was trying to create security. You were trying to create authority. They're not the same. She didn't have a soft phrase ready for that, so she walked away. Derek lasted longer. One night, he came into the garage while I was looking for a wrench. He stood near the door like a teenager waiting to ask for the car keys. I messed up, he said. I kept looking through the toolbox. Yes. I didn't think it would go that far. I turned around. You thought I would cave. That's exactly how far you thought it would go. He winced. I was scared, he said. Marissa was scared. The baby changed everything. No, I said. The baby revealed what you were willing to do when you thought sympathy was on your side. He looked down at the concrete floor. You were like a brother to me, I said. That's why I helped you. And you used knowing me as part of the plan. His eyes got shiny, but I didn't comfort him. That felt important. For once, I let someone sit in the discomfort they had earned. In the end, they chose to leave rather than sign anything that acknowledged responsibility. Derek sent a short email saying they would be out by the date listed in my notice. No apology in writing. No explanation. Just the date. They weren't homeless. Despite the way Marissa had described the situation, they had options. They stayed briefly with someone on her side of the family, then found a smaller place that required actual rent and actual signatures. I know this because Aunt Carol told me with the exhausted tone of a woman trying not to gossip while absolutely gossiping. The move-out day was tense, but not explosive. I stayed out of the way while they loaded boxes. Marissa walked through the house one last time, pausing in the spare room with the paint swatches still taped to the wall. She peeled them off slowly and threw them into a trash bag. Derek found me in the kitchen before they left. He held the key in his palm. I really am sorry, he said. I took the key. I hope you mean that someday in a way that changes how you act. He nodded, but I could tell he wanted a hug, a clean ending, some sign that the old version of us was still untouched under all the damage. I didn't give him one. Marissa didn't say goodbye. She got into the car, one hand on her stomach, eyes straight ahead. For a second, I felt the old pull of guilt. Pregnant woman leaving. Family fractured. Empty room upstairs. It would have been easy to let that image rewrite the facts. Then I looked at my hallway. My father's photo was back on the wall. The house felt quiet after they left. Not lonely. Quiet. There's a difference. I spent that evening doing small things. I wiped down the kitchen counters. I changed the furnace filter. I carried my storage bins back from the garage to the hallway closet. I found an old receipt from a hardware store tucked inside one of them and laughed because of course I had kept it. The family group chat never returned to its old volume. People still posted holiday photos and birthday messages, but nobody used it as a courtroom again. Aunt Carol checked in more carefully. Uncle Ray became very interested in talking about the weather instead of sacrifice. A few relatives acted like nothing had happened, which was its own kind of apology in families that avoid mirrors. Nina came over a week later with takeout. She stood in the hallway staring at the restored photos. Looks better, she said. It looked fine before. Exactly. We ate at the dining table, the same one where I had spread out the papers after the barbecue. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to defend my right to sit there. I didn't destroy Derek and Marissa's lives. I didn't punish a baby. I didn't throw anyone onto the street or act outside the law. I stopped financing my own disrespect, and I stopped letting people confuse my silence with permission. I still believe helping family can be a gift. I also believe a gift stops being a gift the moment someone treats it like a deed transfer. Kindness without boundaries doesn't make you generous forever. Sometimes it just teaches entitled people where to push. Derek and Marissa lost the free ride, the family sympathy, and the version of the story where I was the burden. I kept my house, my records, and a much clearer understanding of what peace actually costs. For years, I thought being the calm one meant absorbing the mess so everyone else could stay comfortable. Now I know calm can also mean setting the folder on the table, speaking plainly, and letting the truth make the room uncomfortable for the people who earned it. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.